One of the biggest cases that we've been looking at and will be looking at, we think that in 2024, is the Brian Kohberger trial for the 4 murders that happened in Idaho. And I know you've done specials on it, and I want to talk about some of the news you broke. But can we start with the fact that they did indeed tear down the house in which those roommates were living over the objection of at least 2 of the victims' families who felt it should be preserved in case it could be useful at trial. And I thought they raised some good points about how it might be useful at trial in case the prosecution wanted to show jurors certain aspects of the murder scene. But here you see the video of them tearing it down. The University of Idaho felt strongly it should go. Site of trauma. People didn't want to look at it. What do you make of it?
Didn't want to look at it. I can't believe they did this. I can't believe that the interests of the beautification of the campus outweighed the interest of justice. Now, practically speaking, no jury is entitled to go to the crime scene. They're not. We hear about it quite often, as you know, Megyn, from being a trial lawyer yourself. We hear about it a lot because it's rare, and when it does happen, it makes the news. We know about O.J. Simpson, rot in hell, taking the jury to his home, led by my former co-anchor, Johnny Cochran, may he rest in peace. And of course, they had the chance, the defense, to completely redo the inside and then take down all the pictures of sexy blondes and put up pictures of Simpson with his mother and pictures of, I think, like a Norman Rockwell painting of the day of Brown v. Board of Education when the little girl goes for the first time to a now integrated school. Images that would strike the jury at their heart as it would anyone. I mean, I walk into a guy's home, I see a picture of him with his mother, I'm gonna think, wow, if he's that close to his mother, how bad can he be? That was all staged. So I don't know that visits to the crime scene help the state. On the other hand, look at Alex Murdaugh, that POC, technical legal term. The jury goes to scenes, the hunting lodge where Maggie and Paul Murdaugh were murdered by Alex Murdaugh. Don't anybody jump up and say he didn't do it, because he did. They went there and they came back with a guilty verdict. So, you know, it's like flipping a coin, and I don't like flipping a coin in court. It's akin to asking the question you don't know the answer to. When you do that, you are going to get the blowback right in your face. You need to know exactly what's going to happen and control it. Whatever the other side wants, you don't want. You don't have to think about it. All you need to know is that's what the defense wants, and then you know you do not want it to the core of your being. Now, again, do they have to see the scene? No. Is it a constitutional violation if they don't see the scene? No. Is it rare that juries see a crime scene? Yes. However, in this day and age, jurors expect DNA. They expect fingerprints. They expect a really advanced dog and pony show, and they expect to go to the scene if they so choose. That's not going to happen.
No
More
longer
important, Megyn, I think that it's a major mistake, because very often it's alleged police wrongdoing, whether it's some sort of misconduct or the gathering of evidence. I think it's really important that the jury be able to see what happened and then combine it as an overlay with whatever was on the body cams. So they know that there was no police wrongdoing, no planting of evidence, so to speak. I would like them to see the room where that knife sheath was found bearing Brian Kohberger's DNA in the snap. That's pretty strong evidence, right?
Yeah.
But that's going to be subject to an argument of contamination, of planting, and I'd like the jury to be able to see that. 3D imaging, BS. There's nothing like the real thing.
Well, and one of the points that the families were raising was, what about these 2 roommates who were there who didn't call 911, or at least make 911 get called through a friend until the next day? Wouldn't it be helpful to the jury to see what could you hear from their rooms versus where the other rooms were? How far away were they? I mean, these are all things that will become big issues all of it's lost now. I want to move on to one of the pieces of news that you made in your special. Your show airs on Fox Nation, in addition to here on SiriusXM and the podcast. And you took a hard look at Bryan Kohberger, I am blank. It's aired in August. And this is one of the most interesting things. You had a guest who served as Kohberger's former administrator at a career and technical institute he worked at. And she called attention to his issues even back then with women. Here's the clip.
Some of the issues that arose were based on having a mixed population in that classroom. One of those incidents ultimately resulted in him being removed from that program.
She says Kohberger's kicked out of Protective Services, the program he works so diligently to get into in the first place. The school transfers him into the HVAC program, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. This program has no female students.
We were also a little bit more comfortable knowing that any possible continuation of negative behaviors would not occur in a situation where there were no females.
Has either of those women, have any of the women he had the problems with come forward, to say what he did or what it was about him?
Not in that particular instance as of yet, but I believe that by the time of trial, that will be ferreted out. But I can tell you this, I very carefully watched and listened and wrote down every significant word of his confrontation with a female police officer. What he did is he went out into a crosswalk and didn't come to a full stop, as I recall it, before he turned. Something maybe didn't put on his blinker, something you would normally think was fairly minor, nobody was hurt. He gave her so much grief. And I only hope he takes a stand and acts the same way on the stand. He would not have talked to a male officer the same way. And actually, we do know that because he was pulled over twice en route with his father in the car from where he was, near Idaho, all the way back home to the Poconos. And he stood up and saluted. Let me tell you, he gave those officers, when he was pulled over, the male officers, all the respect they could possibly hope for. But not only that, I'm very curious about a coworker where he was a teaching assistant getting his PhD in criminology. He befriended her, convinced her she needed a surveillance system in her home. Then he set it up so he could have full access to her home.
My God.
And watch her, changing clothes, sleeping, watching TV. Not only that, he had several altercations at the school. He was actually reprimanded about the way he treated women students.
But it's a good note to self, like all young women, if you need help with the security system, hire a professional. You don't go to somebody who you barely know.
Working with.
Right.
Not the perm named
Mistake.
Bryan Kohberger. Hey, and another thing which is not going to get brought up at trial, I guarantee you, because the defense is going to argue it's too incendiary and prejudicial, blah, blah, blah. Incel, the theory that Bryan Kohberger is in fact an incel, involuntary celibate, and hates women because he can't be with women. And remember, he was also banned from a bar because he would go up to women and say things like, "What's your home address?" I would run for the hills as if I had seen a monster. If some creepy dude comes up to me at a bar and says, "What's your home address, lady?" N-O. He had to get thrown out of that bar. And I'm sure that there are other examples.
What do you think is going to happen with him? Because, so far the prosecution hasn't shown its hand about how much DNA evidence they have, but the defense at least is telegraphing none. The defense wants us to believe there's nothing more than that one dot of touch DNA on the knife sheath. So if you had to predict where they are now, chances of conviction in the 2 minutes we have left.
Well, I do know that discovery has been handed over to the defense, which means if there was more DNA, we likely would have heard about it. But there's more than just that one bit of DNA. There's him buying the knife on Amazon and the knife sheath. He bought it, but we can't find it. So where is it? We know he was anal compulsive. So what did he do with that knife? And why was he in the vicinity there at the time of the murders? Megyn, I drove his route, pitch dark, an hour home when he could have gotten there in 11 minutes. It's complete and total BS. I can't wait to see how the defense handles that.
And then you also went and you spoke to the neighbor. I saw that on your show. You spoke to the neighbor, but then
yes.
the defense is going to use that, right? Oh, he loved to go out for rides at night. He just in the middle of the night, this is his stress relief.
Look, he's a wackadoodle, to put it euphemistically. The neighbor told me that he tried to befriend Kohberger because Kohberger's dad said, hey, he has a hard time communicating. Can you befriend him? But the neighbor's wife, after meeting Kohberger, said, don't bring him back in our apartment. There's something wrong with that guy.
Negative dings on credit reports happen to all sorts of people from all socioeconomic backgrounds. Understanding the credit landscape can be extremely tough, and spending the time to dispute and repair these so-called dings can be a full-time job. Good luck to you if you already have one of those or kids or anything going on. For starters, you have to deal with 3 separate credit bureaus, which no one wants to do. It's also a common misconception that people with poor credit scores are just people who don't pay their credit card bills. They just simply don't want to do it. These actually can be hardworking folks who are negatively affected by divorce, identity theft, medical debt, student loans, or they just don't have the time or are too overwhelmed to fix it. But if you do not address negative credit items, they can haunt you for years to come. And when it counts the most, like when you're trying to get a mortgage at a competitive rate. The good news is, our sponsor, Lexington Law, would like to help you. Go to lexingtonlaw.com and start today with a free consultation and review. Tell them Megyn sent you at lexingtonlaw.com. Hey, thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.